The rain hammered Chicago like it wanted to drown the whole damn city. South Side 2023. Midnight. Neon lights from the old bar flickered through the downpour as gunshots cracked the air. I was wiping down the counter when the first bullet shattered the front window. Glass exploded everywhere. Screams. People diving under tables. I dropped the rag and ran toward the back door, heart slamming against my ribs. That's when strong hands grabbed me from behind. A man's body slammed into mine, heavy wet with rain and blood. He dragged me into the narrow hallway behind the bar, pinning me against the wall with his weight. His breathing was ragged, hot against my neck. "Stay quiet," he growled, voice low and dangerous even though it shook with pain. Another gunshot echoed from the front, closer this time. I felt something warm and sticky soaking through my white shirt. His blood. He was tall, dark-haired, dressed in a black coat that probably cost more than my rent. His gray eyes were glassy with pain, but they still burned with something terrifying. Control. He looked at me like I was the only thing left in his world. "Elena," he whispered, voice breaking. "You came back." I froze. "I'm not Elena." I breathed, trying to push him away, but he was too heavy, too strong. His hand came up trembling and cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek with a gentleness that didn't match the chaos outside. Then he kissed me, desperate, fevered, like a dying man tasting his last breath. His lips were rough, tasting of rain and copper and something darker. For one terrifying second, I kissed him back. Shock, fear, and something I couldn't name twisting inside me. Then he slumped. I caught him before he hit the floor. "Help," I whispered, voice shaking. "Somebody help." I dragged him deeper into the storage room, pressed my apron hard against the bullet wound in his side, and fumbled for my phone with bloody fingers. Doctor Nathan Cole arrived 20 minutes later, slipping in through the back like a ghost. He worked fast, silent, professional. When the doctor finally left, the man was stable, but still unconscious. I sat on the cold floor, knees drawn to my chest, staring at the blood on my hands. What the hell had I just done? Morning came too fast. Sunlight sliced through the broken windows of the bar as two black SUVs pulled up outside. Men in dark suits stepped out. And then, he walked in. Damon Blackwell. Even with bandages under his shirt, he moved like he owned the air itself. Cold, powerful, unbreakable. His gray eyes found me immediately. "You," he said, voice low and final. I backed up until my spine hit the counter. "You saved my life last night." "I didn't have a choice," I answered, trying to sound brave. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. "Choice." He stepped closer. "You saw too much, Ava Sinclair. You heard too much. You touched too much." My stomach dropped. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything now." He tilted his head, studying me like I was something precious and dangerous. "You're coming with me." "No." The word came out before I could stop it. "I have a life. My grandmother." "Your grandmother will be taken care of. Bills paid, best care, everything." He leaned in close enough that I could smell rain and expensive cologne on his skin. "But you don't leave." Two of his men moved behind me. I looked at Damon, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear my own voice. "You can't just take me. I already have." They put me in the back of the SUV. The city blurred past the tinted windows as we drove north, leaving South Side behind. 30 minutes later, the gates of a massive lakeside estate opened like jaws. Beat Blackwell rose above Lake Michigan, stone, glass, and steel. Beautiful, cold, impenetrable. They led me inside. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, security cameras watching every corner. Damon stood at the top of the grand staircase, freshly changed, looking every inch the king of Chicago's underworld. Welcome home, Ava. I turned to the tall windows overlooking the stormy lake. Rain still fell in sheets. My reflection stared back at me, a 21-year-old waitress who had only wanted to finish her shift and go home. Now I was trapped. In a golden cage. With the most dangerous man in the city. And the taste of his desperate kiss still burned on my lips. This story isn't just about a girl who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's about what happens when the monster who takes everything slowly learns he can't control the one thing that matters most, love. And how one ordinary woman teaches the devil himself that real power begins the moment he chooses to let go. The first week inside Damon Blackwell's estate felt like drowning in silk and silence. Every hallway smelled of polished marble and expensive wood. Crystal chandeliers caught the gray light from Lake Michigan and threw it across floors I wasn't allowed to walk alone. Victor Kane and his men watched me constantly, quiet shadows in dark suits, never speaking unless necessary. I was a bird in a cage made of gold. At night, I lay awake in the guest room they first gave me, staring at the ceiling, replaying that desperate kiss in the bar. The way Damon had whispered another woman's name against my lips. Elena Voss. The name tasted like a warning. 3 weeks passed. My hands shook when I stared at the 2 pink lines on the plastic stick I'd hidden in the bathroom drawer. Pregnant. I pressed my back against the cold marble wall and slid down until I sat on the floor. A baby. His baby. Growing inside the woman he had stolen. That evening, Damon found me in the library. He stood in the doorway, tall and perfectly composed, the faint outline of bandages still visible beneath his black shirt. "You've been avoiding me, Ava." His voice was calm. Too calm. I closed the book I hadn't been reading and lifted my chin. "I'm pregnant." The words hung between us like smoke. For one heartbeat, something raw flickered across his face, shock, then something darker. Satisfaction. "Pregnant," he repeated softly as if tasting the word. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me against his chest before I could step back. "My child." His hand settled possessively over my still flat stomach. "You understand what this means, don't you?" I tried to push away, but his arms only tightened. "It means you can never leave." The words landed like ice water down my spine. "Damon. A baby isn't a chain." His laugh was low and humorless. "No, Ava. It's better than any chain I could buy." I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. That night, I made my decision. I couldn't stay here. Not like this. Lena Torres was the only person I still trusted from my old life. My best friend. The bartender who had survived her own nightmare marriage and walked away stronger. She answered my secret call on the 3rd ring. "2 nights from now," she whispered. "I'll have a car waiting near the service gate at 3 a.m. Just get there. I'll handle the rest." My heart pounded so hard I could barely sleep. The night came. Rain fell again, softer this time, like the city itself was holding its breath. I slipped out of bed dressed in dark clothes and crept through the silent halls. Every camera felt like an eye on my back. Victor Kane's men patrolled the grounds, but I knew their patterns now. I reached the small service gate at the edge of the property. Lena's old sedan waited in the shadows, engine running low. I ran. My fingers had just touched the cold metal of the gate when headlights sliced through the darkness. A black SUV blocked the road. Damon stepped out. He didn't shout. He didn't run after me. He simply walked forward, rain soaking his hair and coat, until he stood right in front of me. "Going somewhere, Ava." His voice was dangerously soft. I lifted my chin even as fear clawed at my throat. "I can't live like this. Not with a child." He glanced at the waiting car, then back at me. "Lena Torres. Brave of her to help you." My stomach dropped. "You knew I know everything that happens around you." He reached out and gently, too gently, took my wrist. "Come back inside." "I won't." His thumb brushed over my pulse, feeling how fast it raced. I can make your grandmother's life comfortable for the rest of her days. Best doctors, best facility, anything you want. But if you walk through that gate tonight, everything changes. The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I looked at Lena's frightened face behind the windshield, then back at Damon. The man who had kissed me like I was his last breath now looked at me like I was something he would never allow to escape. Tears slipped down my cheeks, mixing with the rain. Why are you doing this? He stepped closer until our bodies almost touched. Because the last woman I loved ran away in the middle of the night and never looked back. Elena Voss took half my heart with her and left the rest bleeding. I won't survive that again. For the first time, I heard the crack in his armor raw, painful, and real. But it didn't free me. It only showed me how deep the cage went. 2 of his men appeared behind me. They didn't touch me roughly. They simply waited. Damon's voice dropped even lower. Move into the master suite tomorrow, Ava, where I can keep you safe. Where I can keep both of you safe. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. Instead, I let them lead me back through the rain-soaked gardens, past the glowing windows of the mansion that now felt like a prison with perfect lighting. That night, they moved my things into Damon's bedroom. The king-sized bed dominated the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the dark, restless lake. I stood at the glass arms wrapped around myself, watching lightning flicker far across the water. Behind me, Damon's reflection appeared in the window. He didn't speak at first. Then quietly, "You think I'm a monster." I met his eyes in the glass. "I think you're a man who's so terrified of losing control that you'd rather lock the world away than risk feeling pain again." Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of old wounds of nights spent searching for a woman who never returned. He stepped closer but didn't touch me. "Get some rest, Ava. For the baby." I stayed at the window long after he left the room. My hand slowly moved to rest over my stomach. Inside me, a tiny life was growing, and outside, I was already trapped in the most beautiful cage Chicago had ever built. But for the first time, I began to wonder about the man who built it, about the pain that made him this way, about whether the monster who refused to let me go was also the man slowly breaking apart behind the armor. This story is for every woman who has ever felt trapped by love that looked like protection, and for every man who must learn that the strongest chains are the ones we wrap around ourselves. The night Sophia came into the world, the lake outside was restless. It was January cold wind howling against the tall windows of the master suite. Pain tore through me in waves so fierce I could barely breathe. Damon never left my side. He held my hand so tightly his knuckles turned white, his usual calm mask cracking with every contraction. Dr. Nathan Cole worked quickly and quietly, his voice steady. "You're doing beautifully, Ava. Just a little more." Damon's forehead pressed against mine, his breath shaky. "Breathe, Ava. I've got you." When our daughter finally cried, loud, indignant, alive, something inside Damon broke open. He stared at the tiny bundle Dr. Cole placed on my chest, his gray eyes wide with pure, unguarded wonder. "She's perfect," he whispered, voice rough with emotion he didn't know how to hide. Sophia had his dark hair and my stubborn chin. In that moment, with her small fingers wrapped around mine, the golden cage felt strangely distant. The first weeks blurred into sleepless nights and quiet victories. I watched Damon, the man who once ruled Chicago's underworld with an iron fist, struggle to change a diaper for the first time. His large hands were clumsy, almost comical, as he fumbled with the tiny snaps. He cursed softly under his breath when Sophia squirmed, then immediately apologized to her in a gentle tone I had never heard before. "Look at you," I murmured one exhausted night as he walked the nursery floor with our crying daughter against his shoulder. He rocked her slowly, humming an old melody I didn't recognize. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted quietly, not looking at me. But I don't want to get it wrong. That honesty pierced me deeper than any command ever had. Lena Torres visited when Damon allowed it short, carefully supervised meetings in the sunroom. "You're stronger than you think, Ava," she told me one afternoon, her eyes soft with understanding. "Don't let fear make your choices for you. I stayed too long in my own hell once. Don't repeat my mistake. But don't run from something that might still be worth saving either." Dr. Nathan Cole became more than just a doctor. During checkups, he spoke gently about healing not just the body, but the wounds we carry inside. "Sometimes the hardest thing a powerful man can do is admit he's afraid," he said quietly to me one evening. "Give him a chance to choose differently." I started testing those cracks in Damon's armor. One night when Sophia was fussy and neither of us had slept, I turned to him in the dim nursery light. "If you truly want us to be a family, then stop treating me like something you own. Talk to me. Listen." He was silent for a long moment, Sophia finally quiet against his chest. Then he nodded just once. The real test came when Marcus Vale made his move. Word reached the estate that Damon's rival was threatening us, sending messages that accidents could easily happen to young mothers and their babies if Damon didn't surrender certain territories. I saw the old darkness rise in Damon's eyes. He stood in his study, jaw tight, already reaching for the phone to give orders I knew would end in blood. I walked in and closed the door behind me. "Don't," I said softly. He looked up, surprised. "Marcus Vale understands only power and fear," he replied, voice edged with steel. "Then show him a different kind of power. One that doesn't make our daughter grow up knowing her father chose violence." We argued for hours that night, not with shouting but with raw honesty. I told him how terrified I had been the night he took me, how every locked gate had felt like another bruise on my heart. He listened. For the first time, he really listened. When I finished, Damon sank into the leather chair and rubbed his face with both hands. "I almost lost you once because someone I loved ran," he said, voice low and pained. "The thought of losing you and Sophia, it makes me want to burn the whole city down to keep you safe." He looked up at me, then eyes tired and vulnerable in a way that stole my breath. "But you're right. She deserves better than a father who solves every problem with blood." The next morning, Damon chose a different path. He spent days gathering evidence instead of guns, financial records, old crimes, quiet alliances. He used influence instead of bullets. And when the threat from Marcus Vale began to crumble under legal pressure and public exposure, something shifted between us. One quiet evening after Sophia had finally fallen asleep, Damon found me on the balcony overlooking the lake. He stood behind me, not touching, giving me space. "I'm sorry, Ava." The words came out rough, like they cost him everything. "I'm sorry for the way I took you, for the fear I put you through, for treating you like a possession instead of the woman who saved my life that night in the bar." I turned slowly. Tears stung my eyes, but they weren't only from pain this time. "I'm still scared," I whispered. "Every day. I know." He took one careful step closer. "But I want to try, to loosen the grip, to give you room to breathe, to choose." The offer hung between us, fragile, uncertain, but real. For the first time since that stormy night in the bar, I felt the cage around me crack just a little wider. Not gone. Not yet. But maybe it was starting to become something else. A home we might both choose to stay inside. This story reminds us that even the hardest hearts can soften when a child's cry teaches them what love truly costs. And that real change begins the moment someone dares to say, "I'm sorry," and means it. Sophia had just turned one when the shadows from Damon's old life came looking for blood. It started with a single phone call in the middle of the night. I woke to Damon's voice in the study, low controlled, but edged with something I hadn't heard in months, pure rage. Marcus Vale had made his threat official. He wanted Damon's territory, the underground casinos, the protection rackets along the river. and he was willing to use us to get it. Accidents happen to young mothers and pretty little babies, the message said. Wouldn't it be tragic if history repeated itself? I stood in the doorway in my robe, heart hammering, watching Damon grip the edge of his desk until his knuckles went white. He looked up and saw me. For a second, the old Damon surfaced, the man who would have ended this with a single order and a bullet. His eyes darkened. I stepped inside and closed the door softly behind me. "Don't," I whispered. "Not like that. Not anymore." He let out a harsh breath. "You don't understand what men like Vale are capable of. I understand what you used to be capable of," I replied, voice trembling but steady. "And I know who you're trying to become. For her. For us." Lena Torres came the next afternoon. We sat in the sunroom while Sophia played with blocks on the rug. "You don't have to stay silent anymore," Evelina said quietly, her eyes fierce with the wisdom of someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side. I stayed for years because I was scared. When I finally left, I realized the cage wasn't just his, it was the fear I carried inside me. "You're stronger than that fear now. Use it." Dr. Nathan Cole stopped by for Sophia's checkup and stayed longer than usual. "Violence leaves records," he said carefully when we were alone. "Old hospital visits, unreported injuries. I've seen too many of them in this city. If Damon wants a different path, the evidence is already there. He just has to choose to use it." That night, after Sophia was asleep, Damon and I sat across from each other in the study. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I simply looked at him and said, "Help me understand your world, so I can stand beside you in it. Not as your prisoner, as your partner." He was quiet for a long time. Then he began to talk. Not orders, not threats, truth. He told me how Elena Voss had disappeared one night after learning the full darkness of his empire. How he had torn the city apart searching for her, only to discover she had chosen witness protection over him. "I swore no one would ever leave me again," he admitted, voice raw. "But I never asked if they wanted to stay." Something inside my chest shifted. The anger I had carried for so long began to crack, making room for something gentler. Understanding. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked together. Damon gathered every scrap of evidence against Marcus Vale, dirty financial trails, forged documents, silent witnesses who were finally willing to speak. Dr. Nathan Cole quietly provided medical records from old accidents involving Vale's men, and I helped organize it all. For the first time, I wasn't just the woman being protected. I was part of the plan. One evening, Damon came to me on the balcony. The lake was calm for once, reflecting the city lights like scattered diamonds. "I'm letting you leave the estate tomorrow," he said quietly, "under light security. Victor will be close, but you'll have room to breathe." I searched his face. "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid of losing you," he answered. "And I'm starting to believe that if I keep holding too tight, I'll lose you anyway." He also made another promise that night. Part of his empire, the protection rackets, some of the underground gambling would begin transitioning into legitimate businesses. He announced the creation of a foundation to support women escaping domestic violence. The same kind of hell Lena had survived. The same kind I had been living inside. The real turning point came on a cold night in early spring. Damon led me down to the fireplace in the main living room. A stack of old black folders sat on the marble hearth, names, deals, blood debts from his past life. He looked at me, eyes steady but vulnerable. "This is part of who I was." Then he took the first folder and dropped it into the flames. One by one. The fire crackled and rose, devouring years of secrets and sins. Smoke curled toward the ceiling like ghosts finally being released. When the last folder was burning, Damon turned to me. "I choose you," he said simply. "Not the version of me that needed to control everything. The man who wants to build something better. With you." Tears slipped down my cheeks. I stepped forward and cupped his face with both hands. For the first time since that stormy night in the bar, I kissed him because I wanted to, not out of fear, not because I had no choice, but because I was beginning to choose him back. My lips moved against his slowly, deeply carrying all the pain and hope and fragile trust we had built together. When we finally pulled apart, foreheads resting together, I whispered, "I'm still scared sometimes, but I'm staying because I want to, not because you locked the doors." Damon's arms came around me, holding me close, but not too tight. For the first time, the embrace felt like safety, not chains. The golden cage was beginning to shatter, not all at once, but piece by piece. And in its place, something new was starting to grow. This story shows us that breaking free doesn't always mean running away. Sometimes it means staying and demanding that love evolve into something healthier, and that even the most broken men can choose to become better when they finally understand what they stand to lose. 4 years had passed since the night Damon burned his old secrets in the fireplace. The lake outside our home still glittered under the same Chicago sky, but everything else had quietly transformed. Damon's empire no longer lived in shadows. The underground casinos and protection rackets had been dismantled, replaced by legitimate entertainment companies and a foundation that helped women escape violent relationships. The man who once ruled through fear now sat in boardrooms signing contracts that saved lives instead of ending them. And tonight, we were getting married. The ceremony was small and simple, exactly the way I wanted it. String lights glowed softly between the trees in the garden beside Lake Michigan. White roses and lavender filled the air with gentle sweetness. Sophia, now 4 years old, walked ahead of me as flower girl, scattering petals with serious concentration, her dark hair bouncing with every careful step. Maggie Hayes stood near the front row, eyes misty, hands clasped tightly in front of her. Lena Torres was there too, smiling with quiet pride, the friend who had once helped me try to run, now witnessing me choose to stay. Damon waited for me under the simple wooden arch. He wore a dark suit, but his usual armor was gone. When he saw me walking toward him, his gray eyes softened with something so deep and vulnerable, it made my breath catch. I reached him and he took my hands. His voice was low, only for me. "I spent years building walls to keep people from leaving," he said. "Tonight, I'm asking you to walk through every door with me. Freely." Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, "I do." We kissed as husband and wife while Sophia clapped excitedly and Maggie quietly wiped her eyes. Life continued its gentle rhythm after that. I published a book under a different name, a quiet story about a woman who had been taken, and the long, messy road to choosing to remain. Letters began arriving from women across the country. Some thanked me for giving them courage to leave. Others said the book helped them fight for change inside their relationships instead of running. Each letter felt like healing. Sophia grew into a bright, fearless 13-year-old. She had her father's intensity and my stubborn heart. Every weekend, she joined us at the foundation, helping organize events for mothers and daughters escaping control and fear. She spoke with a clarity that still amazed me. "Love shouldn't come with locks," she once said during a small gathering, her young voice steady. "It should come with open doors." One quiet evening in late summer, the three of us walked down to the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in soft gold and amber. Sophia ran ahead, chasing fireflies through the open garden. The tall gates at the front of the estate had stood unlocked for years now. Damon and I walked slowly behind her, his hand warm around mine. He stopped near the old gazebo where we had shared so many difficult conversations. Then, without warning, he lowered himself to one knee. My heart stumbled. "Ava." His voice was rough with emotion. "I asked you to marry me once out of fear and possession. Tonight I'm asking again freely. Not because I'm afraid you'll leave, but because I hope with everything I am that you'll keep choosing to stay." He pulled out a simple ring, the same honey-colored stone from our first quiet promise years ago. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I knelt down in front of him so we were eye to eye. Damon Blackwell, the cage you built around me once felt like a prison, I said softly. But over time we turned it into a home. I'm not staying because I have to. I'm staying because I want to. Because I choose you. Every single day. I leaned in and kissed him slow, deep, and full of all the years we had fought through. When we stood up, Sophia came running back laughing as she threw her arms around both of us. The three of us walked together through the wide-open garden. No guards at the gates. No cameras watching every step. Just a family. Just us. The wind carried the scent of lavender and lake water as we moved beneath the fading light. I glanced at Damon, remembering the desperate, bleeding man who had pulled me into that dark hallway so many years ago. He looked back at me, and for a moment I saw the same raw vulnerability I had seen that first night. Only now it was wrapped in peace. We had both been prisoners once. He of his fear, I of his control. But love, real love, had taught us how to set each other free. And in choosing to stay anyway, we had found the truest freedom of all. This story is for anyone who has ever been trapped by love that felt like chains. And for anyone brave enough to believe that people can change, wounds can heal, and the most beautiful endings are the ones we choose together every single day. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process, but every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.